Hello,
Hello.
I'm Brent Woolsey, in-house counsel for General Brands.
Nice
Thank
to
you for coming
meet
in.
you, Mr. Woolsey. I'm Joe Horton. I'm the Vice President for Marketing. I don't believe we've met before.
Do you happen to know Eric Berry? I believe he works in your department.
Yes, he does. He's worked for me for a couple of years now.
He and I actually went to MTSU together.
All right.
He's a good guy.
He is. We're lucky to have him here. He's really progressing very nicely.
Especially from the way it started. Before we start, would it be okay with you if I took notes during our meeting?
Sure, yes.
Okay, can you please tell me what brought you in here today?
Well, I'm interested in talking to you and getting some help with signing Pat Sullivan, you know, the Olympic star, just won the gold medal in figure skating. Like to get him signed to an endorsement contract with General Brands.
And how would you like to see this come out? Or more specifically, what would you like to accomplish and how may I help you in doing so?
Well, I need your help in determining the strategy for just conducting the negotiations and helping me come up with the terms, anything we need to have in there for sure. And I guess, I don't know if you've heard or not, but there have been just several rumors of some drug allegations with regard to Mr. Sullivan. And we need to address that somehow. I just need your help in dealing with these issues and trying to come up with a negotiation strategy.
So the situation, if I have it correctly, is that you would like to sign Pat Sullivan, who is an Olympic gold medal winning figure skater, to an endorsement contract with General Brands, but you're unsure of how to go about the negotiations and the stipulations we can include in the contract, and you're a little bit worried about how the alleged drug use would affect his, let's say, marketability.
Exactly.
And your main objective here is to establish a negotiation strategy and determine whether to make an offer and what offer to make.
That sounds right.
Excellent. Well, after I get a quick sense of the situation, it's my usual practice to discuss the issue of confidentiality with you. I understand that my assistant handed you a confidentiality sheet. Have you had a chance to review that?
Yes, she did, and I've gone over it.
All right, well, it's important to note that attorney-client privilege only attaches when we are discussing actual legal matters, so any discussion of business here may not always be covered. Also, it's important to understand that in the corporate situation, confidentiality is different. The corporation itself is my client, and therefore I owe my duty of confidentiality to the corporation solely, and not necessarily to you. Additionally, if there were to be any sort of conflict, I would be representing the corporation in that matter, and you would have to find other representation.
I understand all that.
Excellent. Having said all of that, I will be here throughout the negotiation process in any manner that I can be. The ultimate decision about whether to come to terms and what those terms will consist of will be left up to you, though.
So I just need your opinion and a little bit of help in coming up with what that needs to be.
Excellent. Well, before I can fully assess the situation, I would like to get some more information from you. The way I have found most effective to do so is for the client to take me through the specifics of their case, usually in a chronological order. But your specific situation may not lend itself to a chronological narrative. So I would just like for you to provide me the best background that you can do. After that, I will ask you some general and then more specific questions. And finally, you can ask me any questions that you have, and we'll work together to explore various negotiating strategies and determine the best way to proceed. Do you have any questions before we start?
I don't think so.
Okay. Can you begin by telling me just about Mr. Sullivan and why you would like to hire him as an endorser for General Brands?
Of course, you know, the Olympics just ended about 3 weeks ago, and Mr. Sullivan won the gold medal for figure skating.
Right.
And of course, just as I was watching, I watched a lot of the Olympics and watched figure skating in particular, and you know, that's one of the most popular sports. And even me, and I'm not moved to tears very often, but I was just very moved by his performance. It practically moved me to tears, and I think most everyone watching had that same reaction.
The Olympics does hold a special place in the American imagination. What do you have in mind as far as utilizing Mr. Sullivan, or in what capacity would he be working for the company?
I think my main interest would be having him be the spokesperson for WeToes.
And
You know, that's known as the Breakfast of Champions. You know, we've signed many former athletes and other athletes as spokespersons, and I think he's just in a perfect position right now to be a good representative.
because of his Olympic glory?
That's exactly right.
I see. And as a endorser for WeToes, what all would he be doing?
Well, of course, we would want to use his image for commercials and ads and even on the cereal boxes, that type of thing. And then I also would like to have him make some personal appearances at some high profile events. And I think we'll probably sponsor some events such as concerts or sports events or performances, you know, tournaments, that kind of thing, that we would need to like to have him appear, make personal appearances at.
Okay, and would he only be endorsing WeToes then, I guess?
Well, again, you know, given the drug rumors, I would really personally be very hesitant to sign him for anything else. I don't think he's particularly the spokesperson I want in general for some of our other products, but WeToes has just got that gritty champion quality. It goes more for the champion, and he's the current worldwide known champion at this point from the Olympics, and just all the attention he's gotten from that.
So you think that potential character flaws will matter less as a spokesman for WeToes than for other General Brands products?
I think some of the other products I'm more concerned about a more wholesome figurehead. WeToes is, again, I think just more down in the just champion, grinded out, gritty type.
So it's more like star driven, more
Yes,
so than any
yes.
sort of squeaky clean image. Okay, now I know that you've mentioned the, I guess, potential or rumored drug use. Do you have any other concerns about signing Mr. Sullivan?
That's my main concern about him. Of course, I'm interested in trying to get him exclusively with General Brands if at all possible. That's a big thing.
All right, well, let's talk on the drug issue first, if we could. I've heard a little bit, but could you please tell me like what you know, or I guess your specific concerns about his potential drug use?
I've done a little bit of checking, not a lot of in-depth at this point, but just trying to determine the validity of that. And what I've come up with is that rumors started surfacing a couple of years ago, just about some drug use, but they've never been confirmed.
So the rumors started 2 years ago. And when you say that they have never been confirmed, I mean, I assume that to mean that he's never actually failed a drug test.
Yes, there's no record of any failed test at all that
And
I've come across.
He's never admitted to using drugs.
Again, nothing that I've come across. He's always denied it, and there's never been anything confirming any kind of drug use on his part.
And you, I assume, have done a fair amount of background into this, or as much as can be expected.
I have.
Are the drugs that he allegedly used or may have used, are they performance enhancing drugs? You know, I guess traditionally steroids, but I think they have other things now, particularly for Olympians. Or are they like street drugs, like cocaine?
Well, of course, with the rumors, that's what they are, is rumors. And I've not really tracked down any specifics, but you would have to think that some of the rumors are with regard to street drugs, because they started swirling shortly before the Olympics. One of the exhibitions he performed very poorly at, and I think then he went to a benefit and he passed out at that benefit. So it's gotta make you think that there possibly could be some, not just the performance enhancing, but some street drug use also, or potential for that.
But at this benefit, when he passed out, they, like medically, the doctors didn't attribute it to anything, or at least no medical records have been released to say that, so we just don't know.
We don't know that, but, you know, I've talked with persons there and with some persons kind of in his camp, and there's been no, again, confirmation and no positive drug tests at all that have come to light or that I'm aware of.
Well, let me ask you this, you mentioned people in his camp, have any of them come out and openly, and like, you know, put a name to the accusation other than just whispers and accuse him? Because if you remember Lance Armstrong, it was his, I don't know that he ever even failed a drug test, but it was his teammates who in books or in the media came out and said they'd seen him, and that was more than enough to end his, not necessarily his riding career, but his career as an endorser and as a beloved celebrity.
Right. That's something we might check out just in these negotiations once we officially make contact, is get some contact information for some of his team members and maybe talk with them just to make sure that nothing's forthcoming right before we start this big ad campaign.
Now let's talk about your goals here, or the company's goals, I guess. In these negotiations, what is important to you? What do you hope to achieve?
Well, I would love to sign him as exclusively as possible for general brands and to get as much service and time from him, you know, for a reasonable price. I am limited in budget. I don't have just an unlimited amount of money that I'm going to be able to spend on this.
Okay, you said as exclusively as possible. Could you be more specific in that, I guess, or?
Well, you know, we'd like for him to be the face of Wheato, so at least as far as cereals go, there would have to be a provision that he could not represent or endorse any other cereals, and, you know, I'd like it as broad as possible, but I think that's my main interest.
So you wouldn't necessarily be against him having any other endorsements, just certainly no cereals, and maybe even no breakfast foods in general.
Right, yes.
Okay, do you know if he has any other endorsements currently?
Not that I'm aware of at this time. I've not heard of any, nothing's been made public. A couple other Olympians I know have already signed contracts, but I've not heard of any for Mr. Sutherland.
Okay, because you know, athletes tend to endorse, especially champion Olympians tend to endorse many products, but I would think that at least if we made him a solid offer, that we could at least be the sole breakfast food, especially if he doesn't currently have any endorsements.
I'm sure other people are talking to him, so probably the quicker the better, whether time is of the essence while the Olympics is still fresh on everybody's mind.
And you said have him as often as possible. What would the demands be as far as his time go?
Well, we could kind of front load the contract if we need to. You know, I'd like to get as many days of service a year that we could commit him to.
Would you want that particularly soon, sort of still in the glow of the Olympics? Sure. And then
sure.
So you may be willing to use him less days in the future, potentially even overall, if you could get more.
Particularly right now, this first year, I think is the most important. And probably, you know, what I'm looking at ideally would be probably a 4-year contract. You know, this time, I don't know whether he actually will be in the next Olympics, but that would be kind of ideal to get us through to that. So the first year, and probably a little bit more than that last year, if in fact he's going to be participating at that time.
So in case he happens to be a star at the next Olympics, you get access to that, because that could, and you said that you aren't sure of his chances or opportunity to make the next Olympic team.
Right. But to my way of thinking, even if he's not in the next Olympics, you know, all the ads build up to the Olympics, and just with him being an Olympic champion this year, he's gonna have some value